Good day, Internet. This is DTNS Live for Tuesday, March 25th, 2025. From Studio Animal House, I'm Sarah Lane.
From the Atlanta area, I am Nica Montford.
And north of the wall, I'm producing today, I'm Amos.
Daily Tech News Show Live is made possible by its listeners. That's you. Thanks to all of you, including Erwin Sturr, Ken Hayes, Philip Shane, and everyone welcome our brand new patron, Lee. Yay. Lee. Good to have you here. And welcome everyone to DTNS Live. This is the show where we discuss the tech news to help us all understand it a little bit better as we go through it together. Nica Montford, I feel like it's been a minute since I've seen you. How are you?
I'm good. We got some good weather here in Georgia, so I am happy about that. I'll take it wherever I can get it.
Indeed. Amos, I know you're north of the wall. How's it going up there?
Well, I think I mentioned yesterday the snow was slowly fading away. It's gone. It's gone.
For you.
It disappeared.
Wow. It just went away overnight.
It just packed up overnight and left, and there's none left in my entire yard. So
it was like nothing left to see here.
Yeah. We're cruising about the 40s. It's beautiful weather outside. This is my favorite time of year.
I mean, I'm into the 40s as well because it's crisp, but it's not freezing.
It's cool enough to keep the mosquitoes away because those are coming. They're coming in May.
Mosquitoes,
and they're bad up here. So
we've got a big tree out in front of my apartment building. I don't know what kind of tree it is. It just sort of just a nondescript tree. But it's in the winter, it's just like so sad. And you think it'll never come back to life. That tree is dead forever. And over the last couple of weeks, it's this huge green blossomed beautiful tree.
Aww.
Every year. Yeah. You just got to be patient.
The whole state of Alaska is brown right now.
Flora and fauna.
Yeah, the whole state of Alaska is brown right now, and then one day you'll start seeing just a little bit of green, just the tiniest bit of green, and then 3 days later it'll be full bloom.
Yeah,
it's like no time at all.
It's like they just go like, we're ready.
Yeah, all of them all at the same time.
Well, we hope that you're staying warm or cool wherever you may be, and thanks for being with us today. Let's start with the quick hits.
Netflix is upgrading its streaming quality by introducing HDR10 Plus support alongside HDR10 and Dolby Vision for its premium subscribers. This is designed to improve visual fidelity, particularly in darker scenes, we've all seen those, and using AV1 codec, which allows smooth streaming of large HDR files, making HDR10 Plus viable. This rollout starts with select titles, with plans to expand support to all HDR content eventually.
Apple announced WWDC 2025 will take place June 9th through the 13th, with mostly online sessions, they've done this in the past, and an in-person event at Apple Park on that first day, June 9th. This is designed to showcase the latest in Apple software, including iOS 19, iPadOS 19, macOS 16, watchOS 12, tvOS 19, and visionOS 3. iOS 19 specifically is rumored to have a big design overhaul, maybe even the biggest since way back in iOS 7 days, if you remember those. As in previous years, the event is free for developers with limited in-person attendance available through an application process.
Apple is also avoiding potential fine and EU order by adjusting its iPhone browser options to meet strict regulations on big tech. The European Commission launched an investigation last March under the Digital Markets Act, also known as DMA, concerned that Apple's browser's design might limit users' ability to switch to other browsers or search engines. With Apple now in compliance, the commission is expected to close the case early next week and be done with that particular thing.
A TechInsights study found that producing wafers at TSMC's Fab 21, which is in Arizona, is only about 10% more expensive than doing similar work in Taiwan, despite higher U.S. labor costs. The big cost driver in semiconductor manufacturing is equipment. Labor is more expensive in the U.S., but accounts for less than 2% of total production costs due to automation, says TechInsights. So the takeaway from the study is that building a fab in the U.S. is costlier, but the operational expense gap between Arizona and Taiwan is minimal.
Napster, the former file-sharing giant, which a lot of our Zoomers and maybe some younger Gen X may not know, was recently bought by 3D tech company Infinite Reality for $207 million. CEO John Asentos said Napster will be used for metaverse marketing, creating virtual 3D spaces where music fans can join concerts and listening parties, which sounds really cool. And musicians and labels will also be able to sell physical and virtual merchandise in these spaces.
Samsung CEO Jong-Hee Han has passed away at 63 from a heart attack. Han was co-CEO, joining Samsung back in 1988, leading visual display R&D in 2011, and then later overseeing the TV business. In 2021, he became head of Samsung DX, that merged mobile and consumer electronics, despite no prior mobile experience, playing key roles in Samsung's dominance in global TV sales, and was named vice chairman and co-CEO back in 2022. All right, everybody. Big news over here at the Lane residence. I'm now off the wait list in Google Search's AI mode. If you're not familiar with this is something I joined the wait list for, who even knows when. And frankly, kind of forgot about it. But got an email this morning like, good news, you're off the wait list. So I was like, okay, let's play around with this. The AI version of Search is still very new for a lot of companies, even though a lot of companies are playing around with this. ChatGPT search is used by a lot of folks. There are other options as well. So I spent some time tossing AI mode a variety of queries. Got some pretty good results. I started with something where I was like, all right, if I were to be planning a weekend trip, something not far from LA. I drive somewhere, maybe stay at a hotel or Airbnb for a couple nights, come back, that kind of thing. If I were to do that within Google Search, then I would have to ask it, you kind of almost have to know what hotel I'm looking at already type thing. All right, so I was like, what's a good drivable weekend getaway from LA? It offered Ojai. If you don't know where Ojai is, it's outside Santa Barbara. It's really cute. Santa Barbara itself, and Temecula, which I've never been to, with some activity options. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. The second query I asked was, hey, give me a good tech podcast. Daily Tech News Show, #1 results, I will say. Yeah, I know. Among many others, most of them I'm familiar with, but I was like, okay, all right, cool. And then my third query was, who was Sarah Lane? Who is Sarah Lane? And they didn't know who I was at all. I got lots of responses for lots of other Sarah Lanes. Didn't know how many of you were out there who are clearly climbing the AI search results more than I am, but gave it some more context, and then it knew who I was, and had more or less a Wikipedia response to who I was. But yeah, so I was like, all right, now let's ask AI mode itself how it differs from regular Google search. Let's see what it tells me it is better at and good at. Said #1, focus on direct answers versus links. So, going back to my, hey, where should I go this weekend on a relaxing vacation? It did have a here's some suggestions, rather than just a bunch of links where then I go through those links and then try to parse, what I might want to do. Conversational interaction versus keyword matching. So this is, I am trying to understand your question. Talk to me like a human, and I will try to answer like a human. Informational processing and summarization, says it excels at that. Understanding user intent. It says Google search focuses on matching keywords. That's what it's doing. Matching keywords to content that's already on the web. In an LLM situation, we're trying to understand the underlying meaning and context of your query. What do you mean? What kind of person can we try to glean out of what you're asking us, et cetera, et cetera. And then creative tasks and content generation, which I didn't really play around with too much this morning, but again, AI mode says Google search is primarily designed for information retrieval. That's what it's for. You do what you want with that information, but that's what it's doing for you. In the AI mode, we can do a wider range of creative tasks, generate text, write different creative text formats, like a poem or a musical piece, or an email, and even assist with brainstorming. So you might say, all right, well, but aren't there a lot of limitations for this? Yes. And AI mode itself said, here are my limitations. Accuracy concerns. I might hallucinate. Limited real-time information. If something is, a new piece of news, we are, an AI mode is not crawling the web every 5 seconds the way that Google search does. So if you're looking for a news item that broke 5 minutes ago, this might not be the thing for you. And I think that that's really important for folks to remember, because I think it's easy for somebody to say, like, this model doesn't even know what's going on. But that's not how it works. It's not good for stuff like that. Not yet, anyway. I don't know, Nica, how much have you played around with AI-enabled searches?
So I've played around with AI-enabled searches quite a bit. I'm not off the wait list. Maybe I'm not as special this AI mode. But I'm interested to know, normally lately when you look up something on Google, it gives you this AI overview. So is this AI mode basically like an expanded version
that's
of
exactly
that?
what it is.
Okay.
That's exactly what it is. This is basically like, if you want that version of, you get that little, snippet, paragraph, whatever, up at the top of search results.
Right.
And the company even says that, like, we've been getting good success with this. People are getting used to it. People are giving us good feedback. This is that in a whole search bucket.
Okay. Interesting. So I guess for you, since you've been able to play around with it a little bit, how have you seen it, I guess, be better or different than, say something like a ChatGPT? Can you tell like a huge difference between what Google's offering?
No.
Oh, you can't?
No. Well, I mean, as far as search products, AI-based search products, no. But I also don't see a huge difference in AI products in general. Now, I'm not writing code every day. I know for a lot of people, it's like, for example, I've got a friend who's like Perplexity for sure. That's, that's where I go to first. And then I might, do some comparing and contrasting with other models, but that's not something that I need to do. What I do a lot of on any given day is write a lot of, copy for, about tech stories. And sometimes I'll see, like, you know what, let me run this through a few different models and just see how the paragraphs differ. And for the most part, I usually just go with the one that I wrote anyway, because I'm like, it just sounds more like me. Because they're not me. But information-wise, I feel like they're getting better and better. It's been a while since I was like, wow, that was just straight up bad information that wasn't true, and you're hallucinating. I haven't seen that much lately. But I think we also are getting, those of us who are using these tools are getting better at, like, here's how you ask. The whole kind of like, it's like so much more conversational. It very much is, because it's more question answer or query or, hey, help me with this thing, rather than just like straight up keywords. But it still needs to be handheld.
It needs to be helped a little bit. Well, that's the reason why I asked, because to me, it's starting to seem like we are getting these different AI search models, modes, whatever you want to call them. And it's starting to feel how I feel about all of these Plus services. And I mean that like on the streaming. So you have like a Hulu Plus, a Paramount Plus, a Peacock, you got Netflix, you have all these different ones. And they, on the streaming side of things, they offer different content. So it's a little bit distinguishable. But with, these search engines, I guess it just depends on how well they train their data, how well they build their models for you to even be able to see a difference. So it's my thing is like, are we really going to see a huge difference with each of the services? Are you going to just have to like toggle through them to see which one best suits you better? Or is it going to be this one's better for this thing, that one's better for this thing? So it's just like, overwhelmed. It's like you're giving us too much. It's like, can we like slow down a little bit, because it's like you can only keep up with so much before it's like, okay, I'm burnt out from this. I'm just gonna do things myself.
And the whole thing with a search engine, right? That like the traditional search engine, Google won that market a long time ago. You have other options, for sure. But but they all more or less work the same way, and you just use the one that you think gives you the best results. And for me, that's always been Google, even though I've tried them all. But I wonder how much these will feel, disparate as we go forward. Is it really going to be like, Google's AI mode is way better for this, or ChatGPT search is way better for this, or will they more or less all have taken in, the big companies anyway that can afford to do so, taken in so much information that it won't really matter which one that you use as long as you're getting accurate information?
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Guess time will tell with all things.
Time will tell. Time will tell. I feel like I'm aging myself by being like, Google search just works well for me. It's like when I'm like tacos and it like auto completes tacos near me, I'm like, yep, that's exactly, what I want.
You know me.
You know me. Yeah. Like it's like, I know how to use it so well. And sure, I mean, there are sometimes things where I'm like, this is going to take a little bit more digging, to find whatever answer I'm looking for, or a particular photo or whatever. But I'm so used to it that I know I'm aging myself by being like, do we really need to reinvent the search experience? It's fine the way it is. But we are. So
here we are.
So yeah, get on the bus, everybody. Before we tag out of here, a couple other little bits of Google news. The company has released TxGemma. We talked about this last week. It's a collection of open models built on Gemma that are designed to improve the efficiency of therapeutic drug development. And Google also debuted Gemini 2.5 first with the 2.5 Pro experimental feature, which is what it calls the thinking model that the company says leads on some benchmarks compared to some other folks. All right, Nica, we also talked about this last week, somewhat briefly. Apple TV losing some money, but has been well received overall. Critically acclaimed shows. Some shows are, award winners. They've got a big fan base, but a pretty small market share compared to some other streaming services. We chatted about this, but you are the co-host of the SnobOS podcast, and so we figured you would have some thoughts here.
I do have some thoughts. As you said, I am a co-host of SnobOS podcast. So it's one of those things where we're in the Apple ecosystem. We love the Apple things. And I am a huge purveyor of Apple TV Plus. I remember when it first came out, it was like $5. It was new. And it was just like, oh, Apple's getting into TV and streaming. Like, okay, this is new. But Apple TV Plus does have some really great content. The only thing for me is you don't really know what good content is unless you have the app and you go in and you actually just kind of toggle through. They don't really promote the shows on Apple TV Plus. Prior to Ted Lasso, lately with Severance, this is probably Severance. I could be wrong, but in my recollection, Severance is probably the show that has gotten the most publicity. You have the cast going to basketball games together. You have these pop-up shops. You have merch. You have commercials. You have other people getting in on the balloon head thing. And I'm just like, I like it because I really love Severance. But it's one of those things where it's like, it's kind of strange that you have all this great content and you put tons of money into it because you have great producers, directors, actors, and the content itself is high quality. So why is it losing money? And it's one of those things, I think it's from the marketing aspect, but it's really strange because Apple is known for its marketing prowess, especially when it comes to their hardware and their software. So my thing is, why aren't they giving that to Apple TV Plus, especially when they're investing so much money? And the only thing I can kind of think of is maybe it's kind of like a tax write-off kind of thing because Apple makes so much money. Maybe it's one of these things where it's like, hey, we got all this money, we need to use it. So let's do some TV. Let's do some really good TV. And, we're losing some money. It's only about $1 billion. Psst, pocket change. Who cares? That's really the only way I can think about it. But the content is so good and they have really great marketing people. So trying to figure out if they have an end game with this, or if it's just one of those projects that, they kind of said, hey, let's give it a shot, and we're just going to roll with it and kind of see what happens.
Yeah. I try to compare this to the way that, how did we all hear about shows that weren't just, on network television before? Right? It's like, if it's not, NBC, CBS, ABC, or I don't know, the CW, it's like, how do you know? How do you know, once upon a time, it was because I didn't have cable, so I only heard about stuff, and you'd have to go to somebody else's house to see something on HBO, for example. Like, HBO was like, ooh, very fancy.
Yeah.
And just last night, I was having a conversation with somebody, don't even ask me why, but Vince Vaughn came up, the actor, and I was like,
okay,
I haven't seen him around. Like, he really had a good run of movies. Like, what's he up to? And they were like, didn't you see the Bad Monkey show on Bad Monkey series on Apple TV Plus? And I'm like, no, never even heard of it. Never heard of it. And I subscribe to Apple TV Plus. I mean, I'm in there. I'm like you. I'm a big Severance fan. I also, I like a variety of, Ted Lasso, of course, Presumed Innocent. I really liked that limited series.
That was
good. Slow Horses, really good. And Silo, I'm not even finished with, and I have no good reason for that. But it's like, there is good stuff in here. It's prestige television and movies. Yeah. But Foundation's another one that people like. But at the same time, it's like you mentioned the Severance stuff. I saw a little bit of that on social media. Like, oh, they're doing like a thing at what's the big train station in
Grand Central Station?
At Grand Central, yeah. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Like, I'd be so tickled if I just happened to be there that day, or maybe I knew about it and I, wanted to check it out type thing. But and that's, that's all part of a like push to like, hey, we're cool. Check out the show. All shows do this. It's commercials really. But yeah, maybe Apple TV Plus is just in its infancy. And when we talk about 5 great shows, that we can, list easily, maybe that turns into 20 at some point. And at the same time, I worry a little bit that when budgets get cut, which I know has been the rumor of what's going on behind the scenes, because Apple has been bleeding a lot of money into a lot of these productions. You got big talent. You're paying people a lot of money to be part of a vehicle like Wolf, starring George Clooney and Brad Pitt. You think that was cheap to make? Certainly not.
I mean, if you're losing $1 billion a year, that says it all right there. Who can afford to lose $1 billion a year on an enterprise? Like, what's next?
I think maybe we're looking at a point where Apple is still trying to build up its library, because it doesn't do a lot of non-exclusives. It doesn't really let a lot of the Apple TV Plus stuff get out into other services, or take a lot of their stuff onto their service. And I think what we're looking at is they might be losing $1 billion a year, but how many billions has Netflix spent on acquiring all the things that they have over the last 15 years? And Apple's got to be able to have enough to compete with that. And if they're doing mostly exclusive content or self-generated content, things that they've made themselves, it takes a lot more of that to have a competing service to Netflix, if you're looking at just the volume of it. So I think we might still be looking at Apple's acquisition of building that base before they start really promoting that, hey, we can compete on a commercial level with Netflix or with Amazon Prime or whatever else. They're still building that content base before they go out, and without licensing too many other people's content. So I think that might be a big part of it.
That's a good point. I had never thought of it that way, because on a lot of these other networks, they do have like some throwback series that, are kind of like nostalgic, and they've built up, that type of money to be able to say, yeah, let's go buy all 10 seasons of, I don't know, Martin or whatever, and have a consistent where they announce, this month we have these 15 shows that you knew when you were younger, or when you were in your teens, or in your young adulthood, that we're bringing back for nostalgia sake. So maybe you're right, Amos. I hadn't thought about it that way.
I can't remember the cable channel offhand, but there is one that's just playing like all episodes of Mad Men, which is like what 8 seasons, something like that, front to back.
That's all they play?
Yeah, I mean, as far as I know, I haven't seen anything else. It's just, and you know, you have commercials because it's cable,
Right.
you know, which people are like, yeah, that's how, you know, these things are supported. But depending on how you watch stuff, you know, you don't always have commercials, depending on the streaming service. But yeah, it's like you get sucked into that. Like people who watch, you know, Seinfeld episodes over and over, myself included, or, you know, Friends reruns, or How I Met Your Mother, or yeah, you've got that stuff where you're like, oh, it's just easy. It's easy to hang out here. I can just sort of watch this thing that I like, but then you're able to discover other things. Yeah. Speaking of discovering other things, if you want to catch today's music news in around 5 minutes, Brian Ibbett and Eileen Rivera bring you Daily Music Headlines, brand new show. It's fun. Visit dailymusicheadlines.com and subscribe. Here on DTNS Live and Daily Tech News Briefing and Daily Tech Headlines, we do our absolute best to cover all the top stories in tech. You can't cover everything, but we definitely do our best. Sometimes those stories do cross over into politics. We don't always cover those stories unless the tech angle is really at the heart of the story. Today is one of those days. Amos, you've got a major story in both arenas, but we're focusing specifically on the tech angle. What do we got?
Yeah, earlier this month, a major security breach occurred when senior U.S. officials used the encrypted messaging app Signal to discuss highly classified military plans, including details about an upcoming airstrike in Yemen. While the leak became public after a journalist was mistakenly included in the group chat, the bigger issue, as far as I'm concerned, it lies in how the information was shared in the first place. Signal, as many of you know, is a secure app that uses end-to-end encryption, meaning only the sender and the intended recipients can read the messages. It's designed for personal privacy, not classified government communications. It does not log messages on servers, and it ensures the messages can't be intercepted in transit, but it doesn't make it suitable for handling national security information. Generally speaking, classified data, especially top-secret information, is supposed to be kept strictly within SCIFs, sensitive compartmented information facilities. SCIFs are controlled, no phone, no radio signal environments, where conversations and materials are protected from surveillance and leaks. Using Signal instead bypasses these protections entirely, exposing sensitive data to risks like unauthorized access, unintentional forwarding, or data extraction from compromised devices. Even though Signal's encryption is strong, once classified material is shared outside government-secured systems, it's considered compromised, no matter how private the platform seems. The core failure here wasn't just a misaddressed message. It was using a platform fundamentally unsanctioned for classified communication. That's a violation of national security protocols and possibly of federal law itself.
Yeah, this is big story today. And, you know, depending on who you like to read, who's had a hot take on the story, and everybody has, it's lots of questions about, like, how did this happen? Mm-hmm. You know, was this really a mistake? Was it intentional? We're not going to get into any of that. But I think this is really interesting. The SCIFs, as you mentioned. Mm-hmm. So this is you know, having had as much military experience as you have had, Amos. This is sort of like you walk into a room. There's no cameras. You don't use your phone. I mean, what? I mean, people just scribbling stuff down on pieces of paper type thing.
So actually, most classified facilities, whether they're a full-fledged SCIF or not, because you do have somewhere, you know, sometimes there's a vault room. Either way, no phones are allowed. You can't take your smartwatches. Anything that emits or receives radio signals cannot go in. They usually have like a little shelf outside where you can put all your stuff, and then you go through a door. Then usually you go through another door. Both of them are like heavy, like stronger than fire-rated doors, so they can block signals, things like that. The only cameras would be sitting outside of that room, so people inside can see who's coming in or leaving. And then communications within the area, you have for classified networks, well, for networks in the DoD, You have Nipper and Sipper. The Nipper is non-classified and Sipper is for secret level. And then for top secret level, I couldn't even tell you what it is because I was never at that level. But even the secret stuff, just regular secret, not even top secret, all the information is transferred by fiber optic lines, heavily encrypted, and the lines themselves are protected in steel tubes that are all soldered together to where you can't even tap into line in the middle of it because it's all sealed up. No communications in or out. The papers that are done, a lot of them times you can't copy them. They don't want you to write on them or anything else. They're all listed out. They're categorized and they're all cataloged. So people know exactly who has what paper and where it is, how many sheets it is, all that kind of stuff. It's all very, very classified. Like it's very secretive and everything else. Like I can't imagine this kind of a breach happening on my watch when I was a security manager. I would die.
Well,
it sounds like
glad that didn't happen.
Signal, and it sounds like even though Signal is a very secure app, there's levels to this. And it sounds like even at Signal's highest encryption, protocol, security protocol, it's still not at the level that's needed for data that's of this type of classification.
So within a SCIF, all the computers will have no external hard drives. You can't plug in USB drives to it. You won't have DVD ROMs or CD ROMs or anything. There's no way to get information in or out without manually typing it. With Signal, if someone sends me a message, I can hold it, select all, copy, go to my text messages, hit send. And that can just go out. That can't happen on a DoD or INS system. It won't happen.
And
it's
Signal
designed
is an
to
open
not
source
allow that.
app, correct?
I believe so. I believe Signal is open source, or at least it has some open source aspects to it, but I'm not sure.
I mean, I think, for anybody who's sort of like, well, hold on. So if Signal's secure, known as secure, uses end-to-end encryption appropriately, what's the problem? I mean, it does sound like, okay, so if you, Nica, me, and Amos, we're all on a Signal thread together, and I decide to add Joe. Sorry, Joe, I'm going to throw you under the bus here. And Joe's like, this is information that I'm going to now share with other people, even though you don't want me to. It's still encrypted with the people who are in the thread, but it's not keeping Joe out of the conversation. And it sounds like...
And it's not keeping Joe from sharing it from someone else. If you can copy
keeping
it and send it somewhere else. Screenshot it even... It's
not keeping us from sharing it either.
Right.
Whereas in a SCIF, you go in there, you can see it, you can read it, but you can't take it with you. You can't leave the facility with printed copies of it, and you can't copy it digitally to anything. So it's basically a forced air gap. Like you leave with the information in your head, but you don't have the exact copies of any of it.
Right.
So
yeah,
unless you have a photographic memory, then that's a little different, maybe.
Well, and it goes back to that whole, people go like, well, end-to-end encryption, I mean, isn't that enough? It's like, well, it should be. Again, if I am sharing something with Nica and we both agree that should never go anywhere else, then that's a great way to do it. But if that, if there's someone on the thread that is not, subscribing to that same protocol, then it doesn't really matter.
It's also the computers and communication devices that are used in the SCIFs and between locations that are actually sharing classified information the proper way. Those machines have been worked on for years to make sure they are completely secure, that they can hold secure information, and that we know the vulnerabilities of those. We don't know the vulnerabilities of your iPhone or your Android phone or whatever else. And every time the new model comes out, we'd have to have a new certification. Mm-hmm. They're using equipment that's 10 years old sometimes because we know the vulnerabilities. Mm-hmm. On your new phone, it hasn't been tested. We don't know what the vulnerabilities might be. And if they take that and send it overseas, who knows who can crack into your phone and see your Signal messages, everything else. So it's just a huge vulnerability in all the
personal
devices,
right? So that's the other thing.
Well, believed to be personal devices. I don't know if that's actually come out that it was, or if it was on government issued devices. But most government issued devices, you can't install an app like Signal on anyway. So, yeah, either way, it's just bad. It's not
really
good.
bad, really bad.
Well, the Register sources say that IBM is planning to cut around 9,000 U.S. jobs in 2025. Many people will also call that really bad, with many roles shifting to India. While exact numbers aren't clear at this point, the layoffs are said to affect a variety of divisions, including the Cloud Classic unit, where about a quarter of the team is supposedly impacted, employees in consulting, corporate social responsibility, cloud infrastructure, sales, and internal systems under the Chief Information Officer, also said to be affected. Confirmed locations include Raleigh, North Carolina, a variety of places in New York, Dallas, Texas, and a variety of places in California. A few notes from the Register's report on this. Employees that are spared from redundancy must reportedly now attend the office at least 3 days a week, starting in late April. IBM's certainly not the first company to start pushing for, coming back to the office. 3 days a week, it's not 5, but, for a lot of people, it's 3 too many. A former employee noted that IBM lists more job openings in India than in the U.S. at this point, just in general, reflecting the company's ongoing strategy, tapping into India's really large talent pool and lower operating costs. And IBM also has a current and pretty big presence in Bengaluru, Hyderabad, Pune, and Chennai. We also got a note from Ryan on Patreon who wrote, "Not at all surprised to hear about IBM. Every day this week, I've been driving by the active demolition of their earliest manufacturing plants where they laid off thousands and left their hometown 30 years ago. I just hope that they don't leave the environmental toxicity behind when they ship these other jobs away." Ryan, I don't know where you are. I'm going to guess you're in New York because I think that's where IBM's first manufacturing plants were. But yeah, this is how a global workforce works sometimes. What do you think, Nica?
I think it's just one of the things that are part of where we are in society. I think it's unfortunate for IBM to announce this solo. When I mean solo, there was a point where almost every other week we were hearing about some big tech company doing these, thousands of people layoff. And, this one is getting the most attention because we haven't heard about a layoff this size, solo for a while. And again, I just think it speaks to where we are in the economy, where we are with people trying to shore up their business. It's really unfortunate because 9,000, which is, like Sarah said before, basically a small town of people are going to be without a job, which is compiled on top of other large companies laying off thousands of people as well. So right now, I think the job market is already flooded with people looking for work. This is just going to add to that. And it comes a point where if jobs for people in this country are being sent somewhere else and you're steadily getting people laid off, it's like there's going to come a point where are there going to be enough jobs for people to have? And again, it's really unfortunate when you look at the locations, Raleigh, New York, Dallas, and California. None of these are small cities. Raleigh is the smallest of these sites. And for a city the size of Raleigh, and even for the state of North Carolina as a whole, all 9,000 jobs aren't coming from, specifically one city, but any part of this 9,000 is definitely going to impact, the people that live in a town the size, a city, let me say the size of Raleigh. And I think IBM is probably one of their biggest employers there. So it's really unfortunate to see this is where, this ride is taking us.
I mean, even in let's call it like a mid-sized city, right? Let's somewhere, over 100,000 residents. Mm-hmm. Let's say between 100 and 200 type thing. even if you lose 500 jobs that is impactful. Businesses close as a result. I mean, there's a big trickle effect to this type of stuff. It's not just sort of like, well, then so-and-so has to get a new job and everything's fine. It's like, well, first of all, is there a new job for so-and-so? Also, did they, patronize, that deli that was on the corner that now is like, no one's here anymore. So yeah, it's, and this is, IBM is certainly not the first nor the last company to go through this. And I can 100% understand a company saying, hey, we can shift stuff to a place like India where we have highly skilled workers. And it's for some of our business, it's just run more efficiently there. And at the same time, it does change the landscape for a lot of other people.
Anytime someone loses their job, it's always, no matter if you make $1 million or $100,000 or $50,000, whatever the case may be, anytime you lose that security of having income to be able to take care of yourself and your family, it's always sad and it's always, upsetting. Even if it's not happening to you, it just makes, everyone else feel a little bit more fallible that, any day now the hammer could be dropped and it could hit me this time. So it's really, I'm sure it just, adds to the anxiety of people who are working and people who are actually looking for work. So either way, everyone's kind of, a little bit skittish, kind of looking around like, am I going to be next? Or am I going to be able to find something? So
yeah. Well, and IBM is one of those, big legacy tech companies where, and I've never worked for IBM, so I have very little knowledge of if the management structure and hiring practices were all done as nimbly as they could have been. But you have to assume that there are, especially in our day and age now, and we're kind of entering that new era, right? Where it's like, okay, AI and robots, and people are kind of freaked out about jobs in general, and where does this leave us humans when a lot of things can be automated? And I think the big companies, the old I don't even know what the term is, the old guard of companies, we're going to see more and more of this as the companies kind of go like, well, hold on a second. Not that these 9,000 jobs that got cut were ineffective. I'm sure for however long, they were exactly what they needed to be, and maybe just don't need to be there anymore.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where companies are out to make money, and they do exactly what they have to do.
Is that true?
It's like we got to trim the fat. We have to cut the bottom line to meet these goals that we have. Some companies are, accountable to shareholders. And it's like, hey, we got to make sure we're still getting our money the way we need to. And so it's one of those things. So even though people are, I'm sure, that were laid off or talented, were good at their jobs are still probably needed. But, what happens when you do layoffs is like, these, people go, say you get 10 people laid off from a specific department. What happens is the work that those 10 people are doing gets chopped up and left to the other 90 people that are still there. So the work is still needed. In most instances, the work is still needed to be done. It's just they're having to do it with less people and putting more on the people that are still there. So it's kind of one of those things where everybody's looking out for themselves, unfortunately. And a lot of these companies are doing that, and they are just slashing. I think they see people as, numbers, whatever your employee ID number is. And they're just like, well, this person makes XYZ. If we cut people that, I don't know if it's, if it's that cut and dry. It's like, well, everybody making between 100,000 and 150, we're gonna swipe them out because that amount of money will get us to wherever we need to go. But in any event,
and get reabsorbed by people who are happy to do the work.
Yeah. So it's like people like, well, I'm still here, so I guess I'll take on this extra work because, it's kind of like almost like survivor's remorse. It's like, well, I made it, I survived, so I got to keep, going over and beyond so that they, won't let me go the next time. So it's when you think about it, it really is all quite discouraging and sad that That's
I mean,
the thought
working in
process.
development, Nica, which I know you have. Have you ever been in a situation like this where somebody had, was sort of like, hey, we've cut some jobs, and you now are doing that person's job who no longer, is in the cube next to you.
I've been on both sides of that. I've been laid off from a tech company. I got hired back like a year later to the same role. So I know that experience of being laid off. And I've also been on the side where people were laid off and I had to take on their work. And what happens with that is, sure, you're happy that you still have a job and you still, get to take care of yourself. But at the same time, it's a morale deflator when those things happen, because it's one of those things where not only are you already, in most instances, and I'll say in my case, already overworked, you're already doing a lot and too much. And then you want to tack on another, 25%. I know at one company that I work for, typically an allocation for your work is 100%. I was at 125, 135 at one point. And so it's one of those things where it's kind of like you have to kind of take it on the chin, so to speak. But it really is a morale deflator, not only to you as a person, but to your team, to your people that you work with as well. Because a lot of times they will cut people on existing teams, right? And so you spend 8 to 10 to 12 hours a day with these people every day. And it's you start to form, bonds and relationships.
Sure.
Even if they're strictly professional, you get to know people and they talk about their life, and then all of a sudden they're not there. So it's one of those things where I've been on both sides of the coin, and neither side is fun.
Yeah, no, I've had some experience in that realm as well, but yeah, no, it's true. It's it's almost like we're talking about an episode of Severance, but it's true that it's like your team, that it's important, when you got a good team, you don't just, put somebody else in there or take somebody else out.
You don't just take Herb out and put somebody else in. What?
Can't do it. Best of luck. All right, let's check out the mailbag. Caleb, aka Geek Supremo, writes in, I'm sure I'm not the only one to send this link. Actually, Caleb, I think you were, so thank you for this. Here's how to do lockdown mode for iOS. Hope it helps someone. This is in response to our conversation we were having yesterday, Amos and Rob and I, about going through
Border
customs.
Patrol.
Yeah. And variety of places where you don't want someone to be like, hey, I'm going to look at your phone right now. We will have that link in our show notes, as we always do with all of our links that we talk about on the show. And remember, be like Caleb. Send in your comments. Send in your feedback. We want more of it. Questions, comments, all of the things. Feedback at dailytechnewsshow.com is where to send that email. Nica Montford, always a pleasure to have you on the show. Let folks know where they can keep up with your latest.
You can find me at Tech Savvy Diva on pretty much any platform on the interwebs. Also, you can check me out on my podcast, Snobble West Podcast, where we talk all things Apple and then some. We release our episodes every Friday, so definitely check us out there.
Indeed. So what do you think about WWDC? You're not going, are you?
At this point, I'm not. That's all.
But she's open to the opportunity.
I'm open to the opportunity. If anyone's listening. But yeah, I always tune in. I always go to the sessions because I am an Apple developer as well. And I always learn something. It's always fascinating to see what's coming out. I'm interested to see iOS 19 and see what the offering is going to be. But I'm even more interested to see when we might actually see it, because we've talked about it on our show. There have been some delays with features, even on iOS 18, some delays with 18.4. So, I try not to get too excited because like Apple Intelligence, it was kind of like a slow rollout to that. So it's like, I guess it's fun to see what's on the horizon, but I won't get too excited because I don't know when I'll actually get my hands on it.
Right. I mean, is there anything that you hope to see from, let's say, iOS 19? I mean, this whole sort of like, a revamp. I'm like, how are they going to revamp? Like, I don't know.
I don't know. I just, for instance, photos on iOS 18, I hope the approach to the redesign, and I've heard as well, it's the biggest redesign since forever. I hope it's kind of in sync with the way that the interface has changed to what we've seen in iOS 18. I think with people, you give them too much too soon, it's a shock, and then people flip out because people are creatures of habit. So it's going to be interesting to see what this looks like and the perception. I'm fairly adaptable and amenable. I can pivot pretty quickly, but that's just me. I don't know how it's going to affect, some other Apple users. I think of like my mom and my dad and my aunts, it's like, what's this newfangled thing? I mean,
I feel like that half the time, and I like do this for a living, and sometimes I'm just like, I'll get to that. I don't know. I have a system already. It's fine.
Yeah. I'm just interested to see what the biggest revamp in 12 iOS. I think they said this is the biggest iOS upgrade since iOS 7. So that's 12 iOSs ago. So it's gonna be interesting.
And
to see.
that update was removing most of the skeuomorphism, like
which
the
was
fake paper
at the time it was like flat icons, the flattening, and people were sort of like, well, do we want that? And now I'm like, I look at the the old, like an old
and
home
it's like,
screen.
What were we thinking?
And it's like,
we were so upset when this went away.
Why all the shadows? Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I had before we get out of here. I was watching this old movie. Well, not old. When I say old movie, a movie from 2009. So not like a old movie classic, but where people were flip phones and people had cell phones, but it was early days of smartphones. Mm-hmm. And my friend was like, "What kind of phone did you have in 2009?" And I was like, "An iPhone." And he was like, "Oh, really? Yeah, I didn't get an iPhone for like years after that. We were like, everybody was BlackBerry." And I was like, "Well, who's everybody?"
Not me.
No, I was like, I wasn't the first person to get an iPhone, but once I got one, I was like, "Oh, I'm not going
anything
back."
else.
Yeah. And it was just sort of a, it's kind of like, well, is your phone part of, your corporate life? Because, back in the day, the iPhone was not the best place to be integrated in that. It was like not only BlackBerries, but, a variety of phones that were just, you do a lot of, corporate work on your phone. Yeah. And yeah, hearkening back to yesteryear and flip phones, which are back now. So there you go.
Yeah.
Over at dtns.showbot.tv, a lot of you have been submitting title suggestions. Amos, what sticks out to you as a good title suggestion?
Remembering Napster, it's back in POG form from Nick with a C.
Oh, that's good.
Talk to Me Like a Human by Zoe Brings Bacon. Tacos Near Me Tuesday. Again from Zoe. And then The Government Used the Wrong Signals by GPEG84.
I get it. Now, before we pick one, does anyone else do this where it's just like, tacos near me is, I already know where tacos are near me, so that's actually not like a great example. But if I were to be like, shoe store near me or dog park near me, it's like I don't even say near me. It just autocompletes, and I'm like, yeah, let's do that. Let's just see what's close by that I just might not know about, type thing.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. It's I don't remember when that became really prevalent, but it's definitely a big part of my life now. Like haircut near me. Like might not be the one I choose, but I want to know where it is.
Yeah.
We ended up going with Gemini, Who Is Me? From Fred 819. Yeah. You always got to ask, hey, do you know who I am? And your results may vary. Amos, yep. We are supported by a variety of folks all over the web. So let's thank them now.
Sure. Let's go with Technomensch and Zoe both giving us some bits for the day. Captain Patriot resubscribed with Prime and for 10 months. And then Technomensch resubscribed with Prime for 24 months. New John 1998 subscribed with Prime for their 65th month.
Wow.
And then I fell off my bike today, followed our channel, which we appreciate just as much.
Oh, you didn't fall off your bike.
Oh, I did not. No. I fell off my bike today as a person, apparently.
Got it. Well, I hope you. I hope that was just the once and not something that you do every day.
Not a continuous thing. It just every day just refreshes.
Every day
that's horrible.
I thought you were just like slipping that in there. Like, by the way, fell off my bike today.
And then over on Patreon, we got a raise from Legion, and we really appreciate that.
Oh, Legion, thank you so much. We really appreciate that. Shout out to everybody who supports our show. We could not do it without you. Truly, that is 100% the
literal
case.
Truth, yep.
And we and we appreciate each and every one of you. And spread the word if you can. And thank you so much for your continued support. Speaking of shows. We talked about daily music headlines earlier in the show, but if you haven't checked out Apple Vision Show recently, my co-host Eileen Rivera and I wanted to launch a show last year, about 14 months ago now, to just pick apart all things Apple. So we're talking hardware, we're talking software, lifestyle, entertainment, everything we think that the future may hold. Eileen is currently on vacay in Japan for the week. So you're going to get me and Amos talking about what we think is going to come down the pike from WWDC and everything else. We are loving doing the show. Hope you will too. You can listen and subscribe at applevisionshow.com. You can also watch us live or listen, but also watch us because, here we are with makeup and everything. Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern at 2000 UTC. And you can find out more at dailytechnewsshow.com/live. Tomorrow, we're doing it all again tomorrow. Scott Johnson joining us. Talk to you then.
The DTNS family of podcasts, helping each other understand.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.